Hello. I know I'm standing here awkwardly. We're waiting for people to get on. Um, just give us a few minutes and we'll get started.
Yeah, just suddenly. Yeah. You just tell me what you need.
All right.
Okay, I'm gonna sit in that chair.
Hello, hello. We're still just waiting on a few more people to get on.
We'll use that as our kind of cue.
Yeah.
We should probably, so we can read it while or see it while we're.
Well, I don't know.
No, I meant the other way so you could see it.
Yeah, no, I was just saying if they could.
Wow. Maybe. You might. Goodness.
Okay, so whether or not people are on, we're going to go ahead and start filming so that we can just give you some of the basic information about why we're doing this and why the schools play such an important part while we're raising kiddos with trauma or attachment issues or any type of disability. My name is Chastity. I work here at the Attachment Healing Center. I'm the Director of Family Engagement.
And I'm Susan, and I'm one of the peer family support workers.
Thanks for joining us tonight. Susan is actually highly skilled in the schools. It's part of her background, and I'll let her share about that in just a moment. And part of our job as family peers is working alongside of our families to advocate for them and with them and getting their kiddos the things that they need, make sure that their voices are heard, and also working with the schools to better understand what's happening with the kids that are in the schools and helping them best meet those needs as well. Susan, why are you so good at school?
So I spent 20 years being an administrator and a counselor, mostly in APS, a little stint in Rio Rancho, but the vast majority of my experience is with APS. And so I know that schools are not always prepared for our kids. And I say our kids because I have two myself and who are adults now, but I certainly went through the trauma for me and them with school and how schools adapted to their needs. So mostly it's all about how do you feel? Are you excited? Are you nervous, uncertain? And that parents can feel that way too. So it's really important that we think about starting the school year off on a really good note. And that, I think, gives our kids a chance to feel confident and go to school feeling good about being at school.
Yeah. So, and we know that through our work here at the Attachment Healing Center that we set the tone. And so that's part of our job is making school not be a dreaded event, but making it be hopefully a highlight of your kiddo's life. And if not, trying to figure out how to at least make it bearable for everybody involved. So that's going to be part of what we hit on tonight is giving you tools and resources on how to survive school and make it fun.
So, a lot of it is about being successful. And every family and every child has their own area of success. It's not the same for everybody. So, you have to think about what do you define as success? And remember, we're going to try to celebrate even the small successes because each of those small successes builds up into a good experience at school. I know my granddaughter was behind in reading, and she worked and worked, and when she gained six months in reading, we had a big party. That was exciting. We wanted her to feel confident in reading.
It's a big deal, and setting up our kids for success means having reasonable expectations. For some of our kids, success means that they're going to sit in their chair and not throw a fit for a whole 30 minutes a day. For other kids, it means we're going to bump up their grades from an F to a D. And some of our kids, it's truly making A's and B's and working out their behavior stuff. You have to measure success based off of where your kiddo is and be really okay if that bar is lower than what you originally thought of.
Right, and we're going to look at it as hills instead of mountains. We want to get them up to the top of a hill. For them, that's a big deal, and they need to know that that is success, and they are successful.
As kids start to conquer one hill at a time, they'll build the resiliency to build bigger and bigger hills. And that's what we want is for them to just gain some confidence in doing that.
In the meantime, I know that as a parent, I really struggled sometimes with how my kid viewed school. And I think it's so important that we focus on the positive, that it's important for our kids to realize that school isn't a terrible place to be. Actually, there's fun. Their friends are there. They have activities that they like at school. But it's so important for us, parents, the adults, to make sure we're focusing on the positive and not always having a conversation about what went wrong.
Because things are going to go wrong. If you are raising one of our kiddos, the type of kiddos that we see here at the Attachment Healing Center, they're going to have challenges, and those challenges are going to be greater than some of their peers. However, they're also brilliant kids. Most of these kids are brilliant, and they have so many strengths, and we want to focus on the strengths and build on those strengths while we address the challenges.
And you'll hear Chastity and I say throughout that the school and the teachers are our friends. And I want our kids to feel that way, and I want our parents to feel that way. So, one of the things you could think about is introducing your child to your teacher in a letter with maybe your recognition of certain behaviors that your child's probably going to exhibit in the classroom.
And part of what that can look like is meeting. What I like to do and what I traditionally did with my kiddos was set up a meeting at the beginning of the year, beginning meeting within the first 3 months,
Right.
meeting with the counselor, the principal, the teacher, and whatever other supports are already in place, and just explaining to them your kiddo's diagnosis, how they respond best to correction. If your kiddo struggles with any major type of disciplinary issues, such as lying, manipulation, stealing, let's address those right off the bat so they're not big shockers in the middle of the school year. And also give good ideas on how to communicate that with you, because I don't know about you, but I never got home the notes that were sent home with my kid.
They're in the black hole
Yes.
of the backpack.
They never existed.
So it's important that you have communication with the teacher, and the teacher knows they can have communications with you. And believe it or not, most educators know very little about RAD. In fact, it's not really something that gets discussed in their training. And even a special education teacher may or may not have experienced a child with RAD.
Or even just a child. They have experienced children with a lot of trauma. However, they're not focusing and realizing that that trauma actually translates into reactive attachment disorder or all of these behaviors that they're seeing.
And it's important that they see that those behaviors are behaviors that are part of their disability. And always we want our kids to grow and learn and realize that there are certain behaviors they can and can't do, but very few teachers are prepared for that.
Very few teachers are also not prepared to have involved parents. Unfortunately, right now in our country, we're running in a deficit of parents having the ability to be super involved and being proactive and advocating for their kiddos. So sometimes that can be taken defensively by the school, and we can help you correct that, especially if you work with us here. Susan and I are glad to attend any of these meetings with you, and we'll help you kind of navigate that with the school.
And I've attended lots of IEPs, and they're tricky. They're tricky. They use language that isn't what regular people use, and they'll kind of go through it fairly quickly. But I really think if teachers understand and administration understands that we just want our kids to have the best experience, that most of them want that as well. Most teachers I know love kids and want to help kids. It's a rare exception to have a teacher that isn't able to deal with our kids. And they're tough. They're tough.
So, Susan, if somebody has an IEP,
Mhm.
or I know a lot of times to get an IEP, you're diagnosed with something like ED, emotional disturbance.
Disturbance.
And for some of our parents, it's super scary, or they feel like their kid's being labeled, or the IEP is defining their future. What would you say to them about that?
I would say that special education allows us to get our kids all the support they need. All three of my kids were in special education for different reasons. And it helped me as a parent to help them get the support they needed because each one needed different things. And I couldn't, as one person, really put together enough for them to make them successful. But together with the team and with a well-written IEP or a 504, then we can help our kids be the best that they can be. And it's not the stigma that I think it used to be. I think people realize now that it is for people who learn differently. I have a PhD, yet if I got diagnosed now, I could have qualified for special ed for learning disability. Somebody who's dyslexic is it qualifies as a disability. Somebody who has hearing and visual impairment, multiple disciplinary things, not just emotional disturbance or the RAD or something that we think of as a bad thing. And it's not. And I think that we need to help our kids get through that stigma that it's a bad thing and that merely that they learn differently than other people.
I think that I know for me, one thing that I experienced with my kiddo was he had big behavioral issues and really struggled. And so the school set us up with a 504 plan. And they did that in elementary school. And little did we know that later on in middle school, that was a huge safeguard for him that protected him, that kept him in school, that gave him resources. So really, I cringe and I have a hard time on parents. They see that as labeling their kiddos or holding them back, when really, I promise you, this is protection.
And it's the best chance our kids have of getting the education they need and moving forward. All of our kids want to be successful. I was telling Chastity earlier that my son, who's 33 now, informed me in elementary school, I think he was in second grade, that everybody knew the bluebirds were the slow readers. And the reality is that it doesn't matter how long something takes you. Did you start a book and finish a book? If it takes you a week, it takes you a week. And that's the important difference that we really need to have our kids realize that everybody learns differently. I am terrible at math. I had a fourth grade class a couple years ago teach me about multiplication and how they have little secrets for it. Everybody has a strength. Everybody has something they need to work on. It's challenging for all of us, but it's where we learn best when we meet our challenges.
So, what would you say is the best way to set our kids up for success in the home? What's the first thing we should focus on?
Oh, routine, routine, routine. And you should set up no more than 5 steps for both morning and evening. For most of us, I think homework is a struggle. I know that for my family, it was the most difficult thing that we had to deal with at home about school. And there's ways to work through that. And we'll make sure that the school understands that our kids might need what's called differentiated learning, which means the same content is taught as taught for every kid, but our kids approach it maybe by doing all the odd problems and or maybe doing the first four problems, or maybe they need more time. And so one of the things we can do is really look at how your child learns best and how the school can support that. Because believe me, they really do want our kids to be successful. But remember, no more than 5 steps. So after school, they could come home and maybe they get a snack. Then it's time for homework. Then after homework might be some free time. Then dinner, and then bedtime. And bedtime includes getting in your pajamas, brushing your teeth, and it's nice to set a time for that. I think our kids do best with very concrete time. So, snack goes till 4:30. 4:30 to 5 o'clock is homework. Then there's free time. And then you say at 8 o'clock, you are getting in your pajamas, you're brushing your teeth, and the same pattern exists every day. All humans learn by patterns. And the more our kids have a routine, the better they are. The most important thing, morning and night, is checking the backpack
Always check
every
backpack.
day
Yes.
because they will tell you there's no notes from school. And down deep in the bottom of the bag, you'll find folded up in a little origami something that is maybe a permission slip or maybe information that you need to know that your kid needs to be prepared for. The backpack and your help in organizing that is probably the greatest thing you can do for your kid. And they're really not prepared to do it themselves until high school.
And
even then, and even then, there are times, but your help with organization, your help with routine really helps our kids stay on task.
So part of the routine, I mean, know my recommendation, I'm sure you would probably agree, try and cut screen time after, I don't know, by 6 o'clock,
Mhm.
7 o'clock, depending on what your guys' evening routines are. Screen times really disrupt the brain's cycle and ability to wind down and get ready for bed and then wake up and be
Sleep.
successful. So,
If you,
especially our kiddos that are wired a
yeah,
little differently, it's very hard on them.
things like white noise, sounds, music. I used to play classical music for my kids. They didn't know what it was, but they liked the way it sounded. Anything like that to get their brain just to slow up a minute. The problem with games and even TV is that coming through to the brain fires up the brain. And then they get so active that they can't fall asleep. And they really need a good night's sleep. They need more than they think they do.
So routine on bedtime and waking up is really important, even during breaks. They're on holiday breaks, summer break, weekends. Kiddos do really well if they're waking up and going to bed at the same time, regardless of their school schedule. I do let my kiddos sleep in on the weekends, but I try and have them go to bed at the same time.
And even if you make a slight adjustment for, say, summer, it should still have a fairly distinct get up at this time, get dressed, get going, whatever, and going to bed. It's harder sometimes because it's still light outside for younger kids. But honestly, they do much better if we don't make drastic changes to their routine.
It builds stability, and also while we're building trust with our kiddos, especially those with attachment issues, routines will help build some of that trust because they know what comes next.
And that's scary. That's scary for all kids, but for our kids, it's really important that their safety is attached to knowing what's coming up. Because the worst thing for them is when something happens that's so unexpected, and it's kind of when they lose their grip. They just, it's too much for them, it's overwhelming. So the more routine they can have, the better off they are. And sure, we live for the days they'll sleep longer because when they were little, they got up at 6 o'clock in the morning, even on Saturday and Sunday. But it is important that if we kind of give them a little extra in the morning, a little extra at night, it's not extreme. 30 minutes to an hour max.
Is there any other?
I think that we have tons of handouts
Yes.
and things like back to school tips for parents with children with special needs, because our kids do have special needs and we have to be on top of it. 10 success tips for kids, the top 10 homework tips. Oh, I even have some PBS, which is great for elementary school. PBS has all these little checklists and stuff, how the kids can keep track of their things. So if you would like to read some of those, if you give us your email.
Well, actually, go ahead and email us at info@nrguide.com and just request the packet, the school packet of
Back to school
information.
packet. And then we'll see that we'll give you all of it and you can go through it and print out what you need.
Yeah, and again, if you're one of our clients here and you need services within the school or any system, go ahead and just request that either Susan and I be added to the team, and we'll be happy to work with you. If you have questions now, you're welcome to put them in the chat, and we'll address them right now. But I think that's it. Just remember that school does not, for me, school used to be the thing I hated the most about raising my kiddos with attachment issues because I didn't know how to do it well. I didn't know how to advocate for my kiddo in the school well until I worked really hard at learning. So remember that this is not the hill you die on. You have supports. There's ways to get through this. Kiddos are going to be fine, and we're here to help.
And success, we'll all get to that point where we're successful at something. And that's what our kids need.
Well, thanks, Susan.
Thanks.
No problem. Thanks, guys. We will see you later. Take care and have a great night.
Those little kids out there. Now I see what you guys are